The kingdom had been torn in two, not by war, not by invasion, but by a decision. And once divided, it would never be whole again. Israel in the north, Judah in the south, two kings, two paths, one nation, now broken. Rehoboam ruled in Jerusalem over Judah, the house of David, and Jeroboam ruled over Israel, over the 10 tribes who had turned away. And the division was not only political, it became spiritual. Because Jeroboam feared something greater than rebellion. He feared return. He feared that if the people went back to Jerusalem to worship, their hearts would turn again to the house of David. And so he made a decision, a calculated one. He set up 2 calves of gold, one in Bethel and one in Dan. And he said to the people, "It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel." And he changed the priesthood. He made priests of the lowest of the people, not of the sons of Levi. He changed the feasts. He built altars. He created a system, not of obedience, but of convenience. And Israel followed, not because they were forced, but because it was easier. And this thing became sin, a pattern, a foundation, something that would not easily be undone. And the Lord sent a man of God from Judah to Bethel, and he cried against the altar, "O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places." And as a sign, the altar would be broken. And when Jeroboam heard it, he stretched out his hand and said, "Lay hold on him." But his hand, which he put forth, dried up, and he could not pull it in again. And the altar was rent, and the ashes poured out. And the king saw, and he said, "Entreat now the face of the Lord." And the man of God prayed, and his hand was restored. And yet he did not turn, because signs do not change a heart that does not want to change. And Jeroboam continued, and Israel continued, and the pattern deepened, and in Judah Rehoboam also reigned. But Judah was not free from failure. High places remained. The people built images. They followed the practices of the nations. And though the temple stood in Jerusalem, the hearts of the people were not fully there. And kings began to rise, and kings began to fall. In Israel, there was no stability, no lasting dynasty. One king replaced another, often through violence, often through conspiracy, and the throne was never secure because it was not built on obedience. And in Judah, there was continuity. The house of David remained, but even there, faithfulness wavered. Some kings did right, some did evil, and the people followed, and the nation continued, but not as it once had been. And in the midst of this, a voice appeared, a prophet, not from the palace, not from the court, but from the wilderness, Elijah, a man who stood alone. And he came, not with comfort, but with confrontation. And he said, "As the Lord God of Israel liveth, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word." And the heavens were shut, and the land felt the weight. And Elijah was sent, not to kings, but to a brook, and ravens fed him. And when the brook dried, he was sent to a widow, and her oil did not fail, and her flour did not run out, because even in judgment, God sustained. And then Elijah stood before Ahab, king of Israel, a king who did more evil than those before him, who had taken Jezebel as his wife, and had established the worship of Baal. And Elijah called for a confrontation on Mount Carmel, and the people gathered. And he said, "How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him." And the prophets of Baal stood, and they cried, and they cut themselves, and they called from morning until evening. But there was no voice, no answer, no response. And Elijah repaired the altar of the Lord, and he poured water upon the sacrifice, once, twice, 3 times, until everything was soaked. And he prayed, and fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the water. And the people fell on their faces and said, "The Lord, he is God." But even after fire, the nation did not fully return, because moments do not always change direction. And Elijah fled and stood upon the mountain, and the Lord passed by, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a still small voice. And the work continued. Kings rose, kings fell, prophets spoke, people wavered, and the divided kingdom continued in instability, because what had been broken at the top spread throughout. And what began with one king's compromise became a nation's condition, and the kingdom, though still standing, was no longer strong. Because division, once established, does not heal quickly, and a people, once divided, do not easily return.